Well, that was something as Tennessee's able to hold on with a dominant defense in overtime and beat the Florida Gators, which should never be taken for granted, as it certainly seemed like Tennessee was going to find a way to lose that football game. But Tennessee still now very much in the college football playoff hunt. We'll discuss some of the shortcomings, and I believe they start with Tennessee's left tackle, but shortcomings at the quarterback position as well, as Nico Iamaleava looking very much like an underclassman throughout the game, which he is. So, Caleb, a lot to get to. We'll have the turning point. We will also have takeaways from the game, and we'll have your comments. If you want to get on board, do it now. We'll turn to comments here shortly. But, Caleb, that felt like one of those old Tennessee games in which they were at least partly in control, this time with a dominant defense that was going to slip away, as the Gators always seem to find a way to beat Tennessee in those sorts of close games. So you got to give kudos to the Vols, but man, that one did not feel like a confident win in my mind until basically the last couple of plays of the game into overtime.
Heck, I mean, I've covered this game. Based on what I have covered about this game over the past few years, I would not have put it past Tennessee to turn the ball over after they had the ball with the chance to kick a game-winning field goal in overtime. I mean, Josh Heupel threw it twice in overtime. You never see that, right? You got a kicker who can hit a 54-yard field goal, and you're putting the ball in the air. I mean, I just on that pass to Dante Thornton, Dave, I was just thinking, knowing the way this series goes, there's a above 0% chance there's a turnover here. And you thought that could happen.
Yeah, let me go ahead and we'll throw this out there as our poll question, if we can get that up right now, Caleb. And I want to ask, after Tennessee has beat Florida, do you have more or less confidence in Tennessee's chances of making the college football playoff? Because, listen, celebrate this victory. Is a fantastic win. Wins against Florida don't come very often. But I tell you what, that one, I felt like there were more issues than even I thought headed into the game. This is not a good Florida team. Again, enjoy the win. Tennessee fans, enjoy the win. And know that you can beat Alabama and you can still make the college football playoff. As a matter of fact, a 52% after the Florida win chance of making the college football playoff. But I think we would both agree, Caleb, that Tennessee has issues that they have to fix offensively.
They have major issues that they have to fix offensively. And I'll say this. I think they kind of figured something out late. And you tell me what you thought, Dave. But it seemed like they realized that using Nico on a rollout is a better way for him to make plays, because they did roll him out some in the second half. But even then, I mean, part of him being able to roll out is that way he can take off if something happens. And it seemed like every time he take off, John Campbell or Lance Hurt was going to get a holding penalty.
Yeah, it does put the tackles in a bind, which is probably why they haven't rolled him out more often, Caleb. Last look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, ccteyes.com, ccteyes.com. Last look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Look at me. No contacts, no glasses, but I sneeze. Laser vision correction. That's LASIK for me. Caleb, let's update the poll question, and then I want to go to some comments on the message board. We want to hear from you. Charles leads us off with our offense is worse than last season. I can't argue that with the issues at tackle. And I'm going to tell you what I believe based off conversations and watching Nico, what I believe is going on right now. Caleb, our poll question is what?
Does the Vols win over Florida make you more or less confident in them to reach the college football playoff? It's 59% less, 41% more.
Ouch. Okay. Here's what I believe is going on with Nico. Not only what my eyeballs tell me, and I wanted to see this game before I talked about it, and I had spoken to some people previously about it. The thing that's going on with Nico right now is the exact same thing that's going on with Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. It is to the point where pass protection has affected his confidence, not necessarily in himself, but his confidence to drop back into the pocket, Caleb. Now, it sounds like I'm making excuses for the superstar, but at the end of the day, he's made a lot of mistakes himself. There was the run out of bounds, there was the fumble, there were the 2 overthrown passes that should have been touchdowns today. So I'm not defending Nico's play. What I'm telling you is part of the reason that he has struggled. And yes, I have questions about his accuracy now. Also, you missed the slant to Chaz Nimrod that could have ended the game in overtime with a field goal. So, yes, I've got all kinds of questions about Nico's play, but I have been led to believe, and I think that's the case, that because of the lack of pass protection, that he doesn't feel comfortable in the pocket. And I can't say that I blame him.
That's exactly what's happening. One of the overthrows, by the way, he was getting rid of the ball way quicker than he had to. I think it was a Chaz Nimrod on a corner route. It's not just the pass protection. Dave, we have to go here. And I didn't think I would go here after today, but after today, we have to. Receivers have not helped Nico at all. If you watch some of the routes they're doing is terrible. That overthrow you talk about with Squirrel White, that was a touchdown pass. That was Squirrel White who slowed up. I think he misjudged the ball, honestly. And
I thought that ball was overthrown. I
thought
thought the one to Nimrod. I thought the one down to Nimrod was overthrown as well.
I thought the Nimrod one was overthrown. I look back at that Squirrel one, and I think he misjudged it. And I also think that, I mean, look, he plays hard, but it was a bad day for Squirrel White. I mean, he missed a block on a screen that honestly could have turned a big play loose.
He's got a big time. I was told since you and I last talked, he's got a big time AC joint issue that's all about pain tolerance. I thought it was pretty obvious when he made that catch with one toe down at the end. He went down on the shoulder. And then think about how that play really could have flipped the game, because there's a chance that Florida could have gotten the ball back at that point. They would have had either the 10-second runoff. But anyway, I'm not going to come down on Squirrel because I think he's playing with one arm, Caleb.
Fair enough. I mean, and you might be right on that. It seems like, I think there's a lot of instances, and I'm noticing this more, where receivers are not running the right routes and getting in that position. I think one of them, and Dave, you can tell me what you think, because you see these better than I do a lot of times, but that really dangerous throw across his body on the final drive that could have been intercepted, that I think 2 receivers were there, Chaz Nimrod and Brew McCoy. I think Brew McCoy came back on that play and he wasn't supposed to. And that
but I'm gonna play the odds. You may be right. We don't know. There shouldn't be 2 receivers that close to each other. Obviously, I'm gonna put it on Nimrod based off just probability. I don't think he looked comfortable out there. I don't think he played well. He had the one drop, and I thought that he could have made a better play on a deep ball that was also overthrown. Squirrel White was out of that game. Now, let's say this for a second for some Tennessee fans that are being critical. What happened? Squirrel White early was going to be the centerpiece of your offense in the passing game, correct?
Correct.
They forced it to him. They were going to do things. They were playing with tempo. All is good, right? And then he exacerbates the shoulder. And then the other thing that happened early in the game is Keenan Pili went out in the first defensive drive. Now, Tim Banks corrected me at a press conference because I mispronounced Jeremiah Tielander's name, but he's going to go back to Telander if he continues to play like he did. The middle of the field was wide open, okay? Keenan Pili was the underrated difference maker in not being on the field last year. We all talked about Cooper, but Pili deserved to be in that conversation. Guys, if Pili's out for an extended period of time, it's not good for the Vols, and Jeremiah Telander is not ready to go. I don't know why Florida didn't continue to attack the middle of the field. Every time they did, it was either a 5-yard run or a pass over the middle, but that's detail-oriented Billy Napier struggling with game management.
Well, I mean, we can talk about detail-oriented Billy Napier throughout this game, if we're being honest, because Florida should have won this game.
Yeah, let's replace where's the poll question now? And we're going to get to some comments, but where do we stand now on that poll?
Does the Vols win over Florida give you more or less confidence in them to reach the college football playoff? 64% less, 34% more.
Okay, let's switch this up. Did Josh Heupel win it, or did Billy Napier lose it? That's what I want to get to. Hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet. Boy, do we have a ton of great coverage for you. We're live every weekday at 10 a.m. So you got to hit that subscription button and turn the notifications on. I looked at the analytics. They're not as high as they should be. This is why I'm telling you need to have the bell on. Ding, ding. Get the notifications, because every Monday we visit with Jacob Warren, and we usually get a preview of the Vols' upcoming guests. We'll talk more about the Gators this Monday. Every Tuesday, it's Sean Adams. Wednesday, it's Jimmy Himes. Thursday, it's Will West. And then Friday, Ollie Lane, who has been fantastic. So we also have occasional guests like Josh Pate, Paul Feinbaum, and more. So hit the like button, subscribe right now. And the new poll question is this: did Josh Heupel win the Florida game, or did Billy Napier lose it? Last Look brought to you by Campbell Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Let's still remember, the Vols did win this game, and their chances of making the college football playoff would have been 12% had they lost. It's now 52%. So all is not lost. Forget about Arkansas, as they say, flush it, because the Vols' chances of making a college football playoff are still alive. So let's not get overly negative on some issues. And I think Caleb and I will be the first to admit that we misprojected Nico a little bit. How much, we'll discuss after a quick message from Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. They bring you the Last Look.
Is to visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at ccteyes.com. Simply the best.
Ken says, I thought Napier outcoached Heupel, so I don't think either is true. Maybe.
No, Heupel was bad. Billy Napier was worse, guys.
Yeah, and the worst call to me, by far, that could have easily blown up and really had no chance of downfield success, was the rollout into overtime to the boundary side. I mean, you barely have enough room to roll out. That didn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, if you run it to field side, I get it. And you also put your offensive tackles in a bind that could get another holding penalty. I just didn't get that whatsoever, Caleb. But I do want to focus on, in particular, I want to focus on Nico's play. So had Tennessee lost this game, my little throwaway line at the end of my column was Tennessee's college football playoff chances, odds are dropping faster than Tennessee's fan base's confidence in Nico Iamaleava to win a big game. So I changed that up to a championship. How much confidence do you have that Nico Iamaleava can lead Tennessee to a championship this year? Not next year, this year.
You know, I mean, it's gone from like 90% for me at the beginning of the year to 45%, but it's not tanking. And the reason it's not tanking is because weirdly, college football is changing. Ball control is back. I don't know if you guys are noticing that about college football, but ball control is back. And to be honest with you, Nico is not looking any worse than, shall we say, T. Martin looked the first 5 or 6 games when he was at Tennessee in 98. Mm-hmm. And I'm willing to go out on a limb because I want to get to the positives of this. I'm ready to say this defense may rival the 98 defense with how good it is. I mean, that was a lapse in judgment on the 4th down or the 3rd and 18 pass over the middle where I thought Tim Banks should have brought pressure there and he didn't. That was probably the first questionable call Tim Banks made all year defensively.
You're talking about the touchdown pass?
Yeah, the touchdown pass.
There's no question he should have brought pressure. As soon as he dropped into quarters, I thought you were in trouble.
Yeah, I agree. It was his only mistake. And by the way, to his credit, he knows he made that mistake because what did he do in overtime when it was third and whatever? He brought pressure, remember?
Mhm.
And I mean, he knew what he. So again, coaches sometimes make mistakes, but outside of that, this defense is incredibly special. And I mean, I can't get past how good they are. And the reason I still actually think you could win with a mediocre quarterback like Nico, Dave, the cornerbacks are elite. Jamon McCoy is a special player.
Yes.
That fourth down breakup he had was incredible. And then did you see he had another one in single coverage on an island later in the game that he broke up?
Yes.
Ricky Gibson went all the way across the field on a crossing route to break up a play. And here's the key. Boo Carter seems to be figuring it out.
Yeah, he needs to maybe take a Valium before every game, though, because he seems like he's on the verge of a personal foul penalty every time. I mean, at one point, I think it was on his sack where he gets up and he shoves the guy back into the ground. I'm like, dude, just chill a little bit, okay? I mean, I love the intensity, but he was also called for a personal foul earlier this season on a late hit out of bounds. And his immaturity has shown up on social media in the locker room after the game. So, like, I think that Boo Carter one day can be as good as Eric Berry, but I think he needs to mature a lot, because I just every time he's on the field, I'm like, it's a matter of time. I think if that would have gone to double overtime, Boo Carter would have had a personal foul penalty.
Oh, probably. But he's also, I mean, he's a huge part of the pass rush. I mean, let's be honest. Boo Carter does a heck of a job playing up on the line. What's underrated about him is he's one of the very few guys, and I don't say this about many. It's like the center fielder who plays shallow. He can over pursue and get away with it because he recovers quickly. And he did that twice.
No, I agree, but he shouldn't over pursue in the first place. I mean,
I get Richard. Yeah, that's old school coaching. You got to make the right play to begin with. But like, you got to give some credit there. It's pretty awesome that he can do that.
Okay, so I made this comparison. I may have made it earlier, but I'm making it to Bryce Young at Carolina, the former Alabama quarterback. If this were the NFL, you would sit Nico Iamaleava and let him mature because you've got 17 games. And he can sit back and watch and learn, and he is your franchise. The difference is in college football, you don't have that long. You don't have that many games. If you were to sit him, he would transfer. But I'm just saying, at this point, he needs to be able to take a breath and get his confidence back. Obviously, you can't do that in college football. But it's to the point where I think that, Caleb, and feel free to tell me if you disagree with this, that Tennessee's issues in the passing game are both pass protection and the holds that come with that and the lack of pass protection. I think that's 50% of it. And now I think 50% of it is it's in Nico's head. Now, maybe one caused the other, which it did. But now, to me, it's 50-50. It's on both.
I would concede that. I think it's definitely in Nico's head. I mean, look, we know Nico can make the throws. We saw him make the throws. I know it was against Chattanooga and Kent State, but there's accuracy. There's throws he makes over the middle that a lot of people just can't make. And we know that talent is there. You're right. The only thing I can maybe think is it's in his head. And it does have to come down to the tackles. And I mean, it's not just the tackles, by the way. Again, I have to bring this up because people like him, and I'm not trying to knock him because he's a walk-on. But guys, when Deshaun Bishop is in there, he's not good at pass blocking. He does not pick up blitz as well.
It's just a size thing. I thought this one time, and I know the exact play you're talking about, he at least knew where to go, but he got blown up. And let's remember, he's a walk-on. I mean, that's on Tennessee. Same thing if we were to talk about let's say the backups, Larry Johnson III or any of the Dane Davis. To me, that's on Heupel. Like Bishop's play, he shouldn't be expected to be an every down back in any sense of the word. Somebody else should be ready. So we can criticize him personally, but that's a roster building issue, just like Tennessee's lack of play at the tackle position, right?
100%. I want to ask you this. I wonder if it's threefold though. If it's in his head, if it's the tackles. And Dave, what about the third part? What if there's a schematic problem, and only on this front? Ollie Lane broke this down, not on our show, funny enough, but on another show on Friday. And then I went back and looked. This is the third straight Power 5 team to play we keep saying 3-3-5. No, they're playing 3-2-6 against Tennessee.
Okay, somebody told me Friday afternoon after we spoke that that's a real issue. And they would just assume, because I was asking around about that, and I was going to write something about that, and I may still, but that's an issue. That is something that is a schematic matchup problem. And Tennessee, though, did get receivers open downfield. So I don't think that was as evident tonight, but it's been very evident earlier in the season. Now, there was a comment particular, and keep the comments coming. I'm going to get to as many as I can. Chris said, even when Nico had time, he couldn't hit them. The drive in the last 30 seconds, he couldn't hit his target against a prevent defense. You're right. Nimrod was open underneath. We can certainly have the conversation that he just has an inaccurate arm and he's Joe Milton all over again if you want to.
But that's just not the case, and we know that's not the case with him.
Okay, but you can at least make the argument based on what we've seen. I don't believe it, but here's what I think's happening, Caleb. He's seeing ghosts. There are times where they don't bring pressure. He's seeing ghosts, and he's feeling pressure that's not there.
It honestly reminds me, and I'm going to get, like, he's not this guy, but do you remember the first Super Bowl the Giants won and all the stunts they did on Tom Brady, and how Tom Brady started feeling pressure that wasn't there in the third quarter? A lot of it, that's almost what it feels like with Nico. You're right. He's feeling pressure that's not there. And that happens with quarterbacks. Very few. This was actually one of the ways Peyton Manning was better than Tom Brady. Peyton Manning never felt pressure that wasn't there. He knew it was there, and he knew when it was not there, quite honestly. But that's a really good point. He is feeling pressure that's not there. And honestly, I think any quarterback would feel pressure that's not there. I think Hendon Hooker would feel pressure that's not there right now with the way the tackles are playing. I mean, it's bad. And I don't know if you saw at one point they put Dane Davis in the game at right tackle and had him playing instead of John Campbell. I don't know if John Campbell was hurt or what, but they used Dane Davis. I don't know why they don't run out Larry Johnson now and try to play him, because people can say the ACL injury or the leg injury with Lance Hurd, and I'm sure, or the sprained ankle, excuse me. Sorry. And I'm sure that's partially true, but Dave, it does look like whenever Lance Hurd gets even somewhat beat on a play, he doesn't try to recover at all.
Here's my concern with Lance Hurd that's bigger than just some issues that he might have from a fundamental standpoint. My issue more with him is he's just not a very good athlete.
And Tennessee opened the checkbook to get him.
Yeah, that's more my issue with him, Caleb, is I don't think he looks like a very fast twitch guy. I don't think he looks like a guy who moves his feet particularly well. And we had Mike Stoll on, and former Tennessee offensive lineman, used to be with the Ball Network, the sideline reporter. And we talked about the fundamental issues, and that's part of it, Caleb. But part of it, at some point, there's not a lot of guys that are 6'6" and 330 pounds that can move nimbly. There's just not. And there's a reason that two guys started above him at LSU. Caleb, at the end of the day, I think we just have to ask, is he at best Michael Munoz, which wasn't an explosive player, held on to the position for 4 years, started as soon as he got to Tennessee, but I don't think was ever a guy that a defensive coordinator circled and said, watch out for him.
You know, you could say that, but with Michael Munoz, I mean, I never saw Casey Clausen have these issues dropping back to throw the ball.
Oh, no. This is way worse than Michael Munoz. I'm just saying at best you can hope for Michael Munoz.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Munoz was a fundamentally sound player that overcame his lack of physical ability. That's what Lance Hurd has got to be. That's best case scenario.
Right, and that's not what I think they wanted when they went after Lance Hurd in the offseason.
No, you expect a guy to go out there and dominate people up front.
Yeah. No, that's a scary thought if that's what they went for. I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to say that's a really scary thought if that's what they went for. He is can we give him a break because of the injury, or do you think that he's just slow? It doesn't matter that he would be this way if he was fully healthy.
I think there's a chance he's slowed by the injury and he's uncertain because he doesn't have a good grasp of the offense. But I don't know that gets fixed. Big guys' ankles usually don't get better throughout the season, and you suddenly don't grasp fundamental football in the middle of the season. So that may all be true, and he might be an all-SEC player in 2025, but I would be surprised if you looked out there and thought he was anything more than a placeholder at left tackle for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, this adds to the idea that David Sanders Jr. They may plug him in as a freshman at left tackle next year if it keeps going like this.
Oh, I basically no doubt. Now, I mean, based off what I've seen, I think he moves to right tackle, and you have then Sanders at left tackle. I mean, and listen, he's a physical player. I've watched him play. He's the commitment for those that don't know. So, wow. I do want to bring up one moment, and we got your takeaways coming and your turning point. And I don't know if this is the turning point, probably not, but at the time I thought it might be, but it was early in the game. What about Tennessee going for it on their own? Was it 14-yard line? I mean, you're an analytics guy and you hate punting, but wow, if that didn't scream desperation.
Oh, it was desperation. No, it was absolutely desperation. I am an analytics guy. And
the analytics say punt it there.
So here's the thing. If it was a 35-35 game in that moment, like a shootout, the analytics would say go for it. But if you're locked in a defensive struggle like that with that type of scoring, that little scoring, then you punt it in that situation. Yeah, the analytics would say punt it. The funny thing about it is that, everybody was mad at Heupel before going for it for him and Joey Halzle running it 3 times. People can question the play calling. Guys, I mean, it does go back to the tackle situation. Dave, I think you would agree with me. You don't want your quarterback throwing the ball down there in the end zone if your tackle situation is what it is. That's way too dangerous. You have to run it 3 times, don't you? Even if it's 3rd down.
I would think so. I don't know why they just don't run inside all the time. I don't understand why they even get wide. It just puts their tackles in more of a position to hold. I think the tackles limit Tennessee's ability to roll Nico out, which would make him more comfortable, give him some space. It's tackles.
By the way,
I sound like a broken record, Caleb, but there's no other issue with this football team.
No, and what's so crazy was, by the way, we have to be fair on this. Nico did screw up the first drive of the game where Tennessee was marching and you thought they were just in process to blow Florida out, and Nico fumbles on a mishandled snap to Dylan Sampson.
Absolutely. Okay, somebody needs to get that man a bucket of sand. And you know what you do to strengthen your hands, Caleb?
What's that?
You put your hand in the bucket of sand and you flex them. Because he talked about the ball slipping free in the Arkansas debacle in which he Miltoned it out of bounds. And then before that, we gave him the benefit of the doubt on the strip sacks, right? But You would like to think that you would have a secure enough grip on the football where you would hold on to one of those. I mean, his lack of ball security, and I gave him credit on Twitter for zipping that one ball in early, but later it was the exact same type of play in which he threw an interception against North Carolina State, and he is staring down his receivers. It's an issue.
Oh, that's a huge issue. That's a gigantic issue. And I wanted to get to that because, when I showed you guys the graphics last week, I think you and John Adams were a little bit nicer trying to point out that, look, he's a freshman. It's at the end of the game. You're trying to get into the end zone. But I was thinking that, I'm sorry, there are too many times where he's missing wide open receivers. Now, I don't know if you know that interception, Dave. Brew McCoy and Ethan Davis were both wide open on it. Both completely wide open, and he missed them.
Well, somebody had to be because they had 4 guys around the ball.
Yeah. And this is that's a true freshman mistake who's never learned how to play football before. You don't make that throw. Yeah. And we talk about how easy the Heupel offense is to read a safety or something like that, but he's not figuring that part out. Now, part of that is, again, I will say this. Heupel doesn't want to stick to the well that often. He keeps getting greedy when he thinks he has the chance. And I'll say that in the second half, after Dylan Sampson had that touchdown run to put Tennessee up 17-10, Tennessee gets the ball back. you could tell Heupel really was itching to take a shot. So he took 3 shots with Nico on the next drive. That was greedy.
I got no problem with the first shot though. And then it's run, in my opinion.
Maybe that's, you know what? I would have run it on first down because everybody in the stadium knew he was going to try to take a shot right there.
But
every single person.
I mean, it was open. Nimrod got behind the defense.
That is true.
And
he also may have been held too.
Yeah, I thought it may have been a pass interference too. But nevertheless, I mean, if you're just talking about the play call, it worked. And that's probably one he's had in his back pocket. But at that point, after that, you've got to run. I mean, I like the shot. I do. And I'm not gonna go back on that. I like the shot when he took it. I thought it was probably pass interference, but let's get to Caleb's takeaways and more of your comments as we'll highlight them.
I just got to highlight this one. This is the best one.
New conspiracy. Hype didn't want to destroy Florida and get Napier fired. Well, maybe that was a good move.
I honestly,
yes.
I can tell you this right now in Gainesville. Napier's on even more of a hot seat now because I'm telling you guys, that was a horribly coached game by him. I mean, he made gigantic mistakes.
I have not seen anybody look as lost on a sideline as Billy Napier. Even if he's the smartest guy in the world, he just looks like it's a foreign place to him.
He does. He seems like it's one of those where it's like, it's not a Butch Jones situation where you say he's a sociopath. I feel so bad for him when I look at him because I'm like, this is a game that they should have had, but so many red zone miscues, but so many of those were his fault and decisions he made. Even at the end, Dave, I'm sorry. You go for 2 in that situation. You don't play for the extra point. You don't play for overtime.
Amen.
You don't play for overtime.
No question. And they never even thought about it. They tried doing that shift the whole offensive line. So I don't know if they were trying to pull Tennessee off sides or not, but Billy Napier just feels like the guy you run into at the nursing home that needs a little bit of help back to his room. In just a second, more
horrible.
It's true. Brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Last look, your comments, Caleb's takeaways, and more thoughts on Nico as well as the turning point in the game. We'll see where Caleb goes in that direction. I would think it would have to be one of those defensive plays in overtime. Last look, Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
To visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
All right, Caleb, what is your turning point of the game? You got a couple to choose from.
Yeah, my turning point of the game is going to be that it's actually an interesting part. It's a specific part of their first touchdown drive. And it's that first completion, honestly, Dave, by Nico Iamaleava, where he completes it to Chaz Nimrod for 16 yards to the 41 for a first down. Should have been a late hit, too, to give him another 15 yards. I feel like once he did that, you at least got the vibe there's no quit in this Tennessee team. I mean, they fell behind 10-0. The offense isn't doing anything, and you're thinking, oh, my gosh, they're going to fall apart. And he converts that pass to Chaz Nimrod. It's a 16-yard completion, and then the offense goes down the field and scores. That leads to the momentum where Arian Carter gets the interception. By the way, does the exact, literally opposite of what he should have done last week, what you talk about, which is not of what he should have done last week. Does the exact opposite of what he did last week. He did what he should have done last week, where he dropped back into coverage on a misdirection tight end route. You saw that. That's how he got the interception.
Yes.
And
am I the only one that thought that he was going to run out of bounds towards the end of the game with no time left on the clock? Am I the only one that considered that?
That Arian Carter was?
No. That Nico was. Sorry.
Oh, no.
I mean, to pull 2 Miltons in a season, the only way to out Milton is to double Milton. That's a lot of Miltons. Click the like and subscribe button. Let's go to some of the comments where you get to Caleb's takeaways. If he can't be accurate against SEC talent, then he's not accurate. Doesn't matter what he does against Kent State. Tobin, I can't argue with that. I'm going to tell you that I believe his confidence is shaken, but I will say that I don't think they have another direction to go. I don't think they think Merklinger's ready. I don't think that Gaston Moore would be the answer. So but I really can't answer that or give you much optimism other than this. If he's seeing ghosts, he can recover from that. In particular, the offensive line needs to continue to improve, theoretically get things done against Alabama next week, and then you've got an off week to work on it where maybe they won't be lackadaisical in the bye week, Caleb.
Yes, and look, I think a lot of things, I'll add to that too. People talk about pressure all the time. I think there's more pressure when you play a game like Florida than when you play a game like Alabama. And I know that's weird to say to a lot of people, but I think when you play a team like Florida or play a team like Arkansas, you think, oh my gosh, we're not supposed to lose this game. We have to get past this win. This is a win. This is a circled win for us. Whereas when you play Alabama, you kind of think we can kind of let it all hang out, right? And I think that might make Nico Iamaleava play a little less timid, a little more freely. And I don't know if that'll affect him seeing ghosts at all, but I mean, guys, South Carolina doesn't have a good quarterback, and he was able to move the ball in Alabama's defense this past weekend. So I wouldn't put it past Nico to really find his confidence against Alabama. And then you're right. Then they have the bye, which is the perfect time for their second bye, quite honestly. And you're right. I don't think they'll be lackadaisical this time.
Perfect time for Tennessee's bye is like every other week at this point. All right, so Caleb, I have my story up. I'm going to share that in the in the message board about Nico. And yes, I was pretty hard on Nico, so I'm being interested in seeing what people have to say. Then let's get to your takeaways, as we'll do that right now. Your takeaways are what, Caleb? But first, actually, give me an update on the poll question. And then I want to reset the poll question if you don't mind.
Okay, the poll question is, let me get this out here. Did Josh Heupel win the game or Billy Napier lose it? 65% say Billy Napier lost it.
Yes.
Because and that 65% is right. He lost it.
Yeah. Here's the conversation with Billy Napier at the retirement community. No, honey, it's the second door on the right. It's the second door on the right.
You were so horrible.
It's okay. It's okay, sweetie. I don't care helping you out, Mr. Billy. It's the second door on the right. That's your room. That's where you've been the past 7 years.
But the details of that door.
The detail, but he knows every he's very detail oriented. For those that don't know, that's what everybody said about him when he was hired. Hit that like and subscribe button. Be sure and turn your notifications on. Let's get to takeaways. Now, how many takeaways do you have, Caleb Calhoun?
I got 5. I stick with 5 every time.
Okay, 5 every time. That's not a great fit for 4 downs, but let's just go ahead and do it.
Fair enough.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Be sure to get those notifications on because Cooper Mays will join us on a Sunday as he gets to go to bed before 4 a.m. Has been the case with these night games on the road. So we'll ask him about Nico. Thank you. And Coop, what should people do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right. Caleb, give me your
Coop here. First down.
First 2 takeaways on first down brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
Well, I think the first one, and I think the very clear one, is that the defense won Tennessee football another game, and the defense deserves a lot of credit for that. You know, you got to start with the positives of one of the rules, maybe of college football. Maybe we should do this, Dave, because we're being a little hard, and I feel like maybe you should always start with the positives of the winner. And positive of the winner is that Tennessee's defense had 2 bad drives. I think that first touchdown drive, they were just gassed because they've been on the field so much. And then they had 1 lapse in judgment on the 3rd and 18 pass over the middle, which was brilliant design play and just the only bad play call I've seen Tim Banks have all year. You take out that, I mean, this defense was superb. Once again, they were constantly forced to have their backs against the wall. And we're not talking about that strips. We're not talking enough about that forced fumble James Pierce had on the goal line. I mean, that was James Pierce making a play.
That was Al Wilson, 1998.
That
forced 3 fumbles in that game. At least 2 were inside the 5. The question, our poll question is reset. Who won the game for the Vols? Dylan Sampson or the defense. It's obvious to me that Dylan Sampson is the most lethal of all in Tennessee's backfield, which I would have never thought would have been the case. I would have thought it would have been Nico, but Dylan Sampson is where you need a lean moving forward. Josh Heupel, and there's no question about it. So did you give me 2 takeaways?
No, that was my first. The second one, I apologize. I meant to do. I probably should have done that. But the second one is honestly the every aspect of the Vols passing offense was an issue. We talked about the pass protection; it was bad. We talked about Nico seeing ghost, Nico being inaccurate, Nico staring down receivers, Nico making the wrong decisions. Literally every part of pass pro was bad. Not pass pro, the passing game was bad. I'm with you again. I still don't know why Josh Heupel's not going more 12 personnel. I think if you go more 12 personnel, I think those shots are there downfield.
Okay.
Even with
here's what I was told since you and I've last talked, that it's not that easy, that the defense makes adjustments, and that they did so against Arkansas. So I think you run out there and the defense is ready for the 12 personnel and doesn't go with that 3-3 or even 3-2-6 look. That's what I think's happening right now. I was told that other coaches are making good adjustments. Now, other coaches this person was referring to are good coaches. Like Sam Pittman, we think is a solid fundamental coach, right? He may not be a great coach, but he's solid fundamentally. He knows when to run a bigger, more physical defense out there against 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. I'm not sure that Billy Napier does.
No, Billy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, Billy Napier is he's the Derek Dooley side. Sam Pittman's a ball guy that knows ball, so he gets that. Billy Napier is like the Derek Dooley of like a CEO, and again, CEOs only work in football if they know ball. So
I'm with Nathaniel. Needs to be 12 personnel as long as Hurd and Campbell start. I think that needs to be your base, and I was told it's not that simple. And listen. Well, right now it's not that simple doing anything with 3 wide in there, and what Tennessee did in 2022.
Cooper Mays here. 2nd down.
All right. What's your next takeaway, Caleb?
All right. So the next takeaway is the running game got going late. And what I will say is whatever we're saying about the tackles, God, you got to give credit to not just Dylan Sampson, but the interior of the offensive line with Cooper Mays, Javonte Spraggins, and Andre Carrick.
Yeah, we always leave out Andre Carrick, but let's face it. I mean, they're able to run it behind that trio basically whenever they want. That's why, to me, yes, defenses can adjust and they'll walk one more in the box against the 12 personnel, but I still think you win a lot of those battles even when you're a man down.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
All right. What's your next? Yes, you're right, Tobin. I agree with that. It does mean more to rush the passer. What's your next takeaway? Listen,
all right.
This needs to be a team that runs the ball 65% of the time, guys.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly,
excite you, but you need to. Every game now is like the college, the NCAA basketball tournament, Caleb. Just survive and advance. We'd be having such a different conversation right now if Tennessee had done so against Arkansas. That's where college football is now. I don't care how you win, just win.
Yes, totally agree. All right, so my next one is, and this is kind of an interesting one, but this goes into the Billy Napier bad coaching that we keep joking about. It was a game of miscues. I mean, this is one of the ugliest college football games I've ever seen. And I don't mean like ugly in a pretty way, like that, you know, the 98 Tennessee Florida game where you just had 2 NFL caliber defenses going at it. I mean, ugly in that I looked at this game and I'm like, can either of these teams make a push in the college football playoff? Because it was like mistake after mistake. We talk about the Nico Iamaleava fumble on the first drive. Then there's the interception. Luckily for Tennessee, Florida made more mistakes. This was General Nealon's game maxim #1 galore. They failed to convert 2 4th downs, including a 4th and inches when Billy Napier got in shotgun. I love when they get in shotgun on 4th and an inch, man, instead of just doing a quarterback sneak.
Well, I'll take it a step further. Did anybody think the maxims, which refer to special teams, press on all 3 phases? Did anybody think that Florida was going to win this thing on special teams after 2 punt returns that almost broke?
No.
I did. I thought that's how Florida's going to find a way to win this, and Tennessee's going to lose it.
You're okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. All right.
There were two that were.
They got close at the end, yes, and that's the problem with those line drive punts with Jackson Ross is with the line drive punts you can get good returns on them. But luckily for Tennessee, Florida failed to convert a 4th and inches in the red zone. They had a goal line fumble. They set up a Tennessee field goal with an interception. And let's not forget this. We haven't brought this up yet. They had a field goal at halftime waved off because they couldn't substitute in time.
That's not very detail oriented. I almost
I mean, we almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
All right. What's your next takeaway, Caleb? And then I'm going to share a story in the chat about how Tennessee's college football playoff chances improved even before that game kicked off. Right now, Tennessee, according to ESPN, a 52% chance of making the college football playoff. So, Caleb, what do you got?
All right. So next up is I think isn't it 4th down, by the way? I think it's 4th down.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. What do you got?
Well, it's funny, and I saved this for 4th down. 4th down conversions made the difference. We're talking about the 4th and inches that the Gators went into shotgun and failed to convert. Then they throw a pass with DJ Lagway that Jamon McCoy breaks up. Now, as I say all this, we have to point out Elvin in the room. Graham Mertz did get hurt in this game, and I think that took away a dynamic of their offense because DJ Lagway he doesn't methodically work the field the way Graham Mertz is able to do a lot of times. But Keenan Peely got hurt on the other side, and that's actually almost as big. But still, those 2 4th downs Florida failed. Tennessee converted their 2. One was on that bizarre one of desperation in their own red zone, but the other one was, again, Dylan Sampson on 4th and 1 inch inside the 3-yard line. This is the difference of the game, guys. On Florida's 4th and inches, they get into shotgun, and it stopped. On Tennessee's 4th and inches, what'd they do, Dave? They got under center and handed it straight off to Dylan Sampson, but the 2 extra tight ends, it looked like the David Cutcliffe goal line offense of the 90s, where you just put 3 extra tight ends in, and you just say, we're going to run it and try and stop us, and they score a touchdown on that play. And so 4th down conversions were the difference.
Rizzy with a good comment. Takeaway, Brazel will be a superstar. That's another bad throw by Nico. He's got to keep that ball in bounds, the one down the sideline to Brazel, to allow him to make a play on that. That's what Brazel does. They got him in one-on-one coverage and man. So, as we all know from back in the day when everybody criticized Tennessee's defensive backs coach Larry Slade, you have to stare at the man when you're playing man. That's where Chris Brazel is at his best, jumping up for the ball. You have got to put that ball in the field to let him make a play for it. And it was thrown out of bounds, and he almost made a play. All right, so Torchbearers, who are we giving the ultimate award to? What balls helped bring home the victory for Tennessee? As we remind you, Last Look brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
To visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
Caleb, give me your Torchbearers all in one, if you don't mind, and then we'll break each one of them down as I'll create a poll question on that. So give me your 4 or however many you may have.
Okay, so my 5, they were tough because there were a lot of defenders I wanted to give credit to, but my interior defense. So I kind of spread things out a little bit based on positions. Very communist of me, guys. I know. I'm sorry. But I gave credit to Bryson Eason at defensive tackle. He had 2 tackles for a loss. He won that game for Tennessee at the end. To run down that play in overtime to force Florida in that 3rd and long was a huge play. Bryson Eason, it came down to him or Joshua Josephs, who had 1.5 tackles for a loss for that final Torchbearer spot. And Joshua Josephs does deserve an honorable mention, but Dave, I had to do Bryson Eason because he was getting the push in the middle.
Okay, so I'm going to assume you're going to go with Dylan Sampson and James Pierce.
Oh my gosh, you're right. You asked me to name all 5.
That's all right.
Apologize. Yes. So my other Torchbearers are Boo Carter, Jamad McCoy, James Pierce, and Dylan Sampson.
Okay, interesting group. All right, so I got Dylan Sampson, James Pierce. Who do you want along with Jamad McCoy as your final opportunity? Because we can only work in 4 on the YouTube.
How about just say other for the poll question? Dylan Sampson, James Pierce, Jamad McCoy, other.
Okay, I'm going to go Boo Carter. Local.
All right.
All right. I would vote on that. James Pierce. I think Tennessee, talk about seeing ghosts. I think they see losses. And I think they see what happened against Arkansas if James Pierce doesn't make that play at the goal line and strip that ball away. I think things were about to go emotionally south for the Vols. That was a monstrous season-saving play, in my opinion. As a matter of fact, that would have been my turning point. Caleb, what else on our torchbearers?
Yes. Well, that's I can give you what James Pierce says, the overall torchbearer. I'm going to go Jamal McCoy as the overall torchbearer. I think, guys, I've been saying this for a while. Jamal McCoy is a special player. I mean, incredibly special player. He is honestly, he's going to be a first 2-round NFL draft pick.
I agree. I think the same thing could be said for Arian Carter, who I would have in there.
I almost had him on there too. Arian Carter is an honorable mention.
Do you notice on the pick that he?
You know what? I'm changing that. I'm taking Bryson Easton off and putting on Arian Carter.
Okay. Did you notice on the pick that he took the correct drop, unlike the Arkansas game where he gave up a first down when Arkansas was within their own 1
Yeah,
yard?
that's what I was saying earlier. Is Arian Carter did what he should have done in the Arkansas game. Guys, I've totally changed my torchbearers 1,000 times, but here's the list. I love Boo Carter. I got to knock him off just because there's just too many people to put on, and I'm spreading the love. So I'm going Arian Carter, Bryson Easton, Jermon McCoy, James Pierce, and Dylan Sampson. Now, okay. I don't know if that's fair or unfair. And even with Dylan Sampson, that's kind of a collective of Dylan Sampson, Javonte Spraggins, Cooper Mays, and Andre Carrick all together.
All right. Now, so are we getting to the report card now?
Yes, let's do the report card now. Let's finish your. So those are just real quick before I do that, Dave. So those are my 5: Arian Carter, Bryson Easton, Jamal McCoy, James Pierce, Dylan Sampson. Would you take any of those off? And the guys I left off were Boo Carter and if you wanted to name Boo Carter and Joshua Josephs. Would you put either of them on for the 5 I had on?
So you're 4 now. The 4 now are on our YouTube poll are Dylan Sampson, Boo Carter, James Pierce, Jermod McCoy. Who would are you?
I knocked off Boo Carter and put on Bryson Easton and Arian Carter.
I would have Arian Carter on there ahead of Bryson Easton. No offense to Bryson Easton, but I think that James Pierce opened some stuff up for him. I think somebody else could have done something similar. So I would actually have him 5. I would have
them ahead of Boo Carter, though.
Yes, I would have James Pierce. You know, I'll take that back. I would have Bryson Easton 4th. I would have James Pierce as the playmaker that Tennessee had to have. I would have Dylan Sampson as the threat for the offense because Nico's not that right now. I would have Arian Carter on that list, and those would be my top 3. I think those are kind of at a different level, and then there's a drop down for the other guys, which will probably be headlined by.
Well, wait, but you got to throw Jamal McCoy in there too. That's why I said it's got to be a 5. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. Even I wouldn't put Easton ahead of Jamal McCoy. But
okay, well, I'll take McCoy ahead of Easton. So let's get to the report card, as I will either agree or disagree with Caleb's grading.
Hey now.
With that, if I agree or
that's crazy,
and if it's just really off base,
you suck. Yeah, jackass.
Okay, but we don't want to get to that. All right, so
horrible. You should just be so ashamed of yourself.
Yes, I would. So vote on our poll question: who's the Vols torchbearers best player tonight? Win versus Gators. We got Dylan Sampson, Boo Carter, James Pierce, Jermon McCoy up there. Sampson leading with 46%. Guys, James Pierce, if he doesn't make that play, I'm telling you, Tennessee loses by double digits. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I might actually. I might agree with you on that. No, I think I kind of agree with you on that.
I just feel like the dauber's down at that point. The stinger's gone. You know, so that's an old football term. Have you heard that? The dauber's down before?
I have not actually.
But things go bad. They got their daubers down. All right. So what do you got for report card? Where are we starting?
We're gonna start at quarterback, and I am sorry in advance, but it's a D.
Hey now.
I think that's fine. I mean, I don't care what the reason is, if he's seeing ghosts or not, if the tackles make him uncomfortable or not. At the bottom, at the end of the day, that's his play.
Yeah, no, exactly. So the report card is the quarterback is a D. Running backs is a B plus. I get why you might say A. But I will say that Dylan Sampson was averaging less than 3 yards a carry until the fourth quarter, and Deshaun Bishop missing that block. I had to give it a B plus. Am I harsh, Dave? Should I give it an A?
That's crazy.
I would give it an A, and I don't think as much about their lack of efficiency or productivity earlier, because I don't think Tennessee was trying to do that. I think they were trying to come out with tempo and get the ball downfield, and the guys were open. They just didn't connect.
Okay. Fair enough.
To me, that's coaching more than it's like Sampson didn't show up. You know, if you hand it to him earlier in the game, he's probably going to be productive earlier in the game.
Yeah, I could see that. All right. So next for me is I'm going to say I'm going to wide receivers. I apologize. And that is a C minus. I think whatever the reason is, and I get what your point is with like Squirrel White being hurt, but there were some missed blocks. I do think there were some poorly run routes, and I just can't look past those things, quite honestly. So
that's fine. I would put it more on Nico, so I'll go a slightly.
That's crazy.
But I'm only probably a C plus. I mean, we're not way apart. What else?
All right, so tight ends is a C. I just didn't think they were that impactful in this game. They could have been
incomplete.
Sorry?
How about an incomplete?
Yeah, and this is going to get to the coaching and Joey Halzle. I just don't think they're being used properly right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, you're absolutely right. All right, who's next?
All right, so next
even Pat Ryan, former Tennessee quarterback, who I listened to in a halftime, said, "Where's Ethan Davis?" You know, that would be a really tough matchup. If he's even an average blocker at this point, where's Ethan Davis? All right, who's next?
I mean, he was open on a play, and Nico didn't see him. But yeah, all right. So to round out the offense, I'm giving a D plus to the offensive line, and that's hard for me because I think the interior offensive line deserves an A. But I think the horrid play of the tackles just pushes it all the way down to a D plus because it just outweighs how bad the interior was.
Hey now.
I got no argument with that. All right, defense.
All right, so on the defensive side, I don't give these out lightly, Dave, and you know I don't give these out lightly. I'm giving an A plus to the defensive line.
Hey now.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I thought they played great.
Yep.
In the game, if not for that James Pierce play, I'll go to my grave saying that.
No, I totally understand. I totally agree. I'm giving a B plus to the linebackers. I thought Florida was able to move the ball a little bit too much, largely because Keenan Peele got hurt. But the linebacker, it's not enough for me to punish them too much. I mean, they still made plays. So I go B plus for linebackers.
Hey now.
I can roll with that. No, I'm sorry. With Peele out,
That's crazy.
I just thought the middle of the field was wide open. Jeremiah T-Lander is not ready.
I think you were too hard on him. I think T-Lander made some nice plays, but maybe you're right. Maybe this was sometimes you see things from the perspective of the team you're covering, and I'm forgetting that Billy Napier was on the other side, and maybe T-Lander looked okay because Billy Napier didn't exploit where he's weak because he's Billy Napier.
Yeah,
and
he got folded up like a metal chair at one point by a Florida offensive lineman. That it's a good thing he's more flexible than me because I'd have broke. All right, what's next, Caleb?
Defensive backs. A minus only because of that touchdown pass. But Dave, I almost wanted to go A plus for defensive backs in this game.
The first time where I saw Will Brooks be out of position.
Hey now.
He's got to get more drop into that defense. Now, I think they should have brought pressure, but if you're going to run that, you've got to get more depth. And he was kind of caught in no man's land. You want to make DJ Lagway run that ball. And he seemed like he was sort of in a pseudo spy position. If so, then attack. But all right, who's next?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. And maybe that's why Tim Banks did drop back in coverage because he banked on Will Brooks being in position because he usually is. So we'll give him some credit.
Hey, Elias, I do want to be clear. I agree with you. I think T-Lander was a massive upgrade on what happened last year when Peele went out. I agree with you there. No question. So somewhere in the middle. All right, Caleb,
Yep.
who's next?
Alrighty. So we're gonna go kicking A+. Max Gilbert made his only field goal, and honestly, I thought Josh Heupel was way too risky in overtime with how good of a kicker Max Gilbert is.
Hey now.
Okay, I can go with that.
Punting is a B-. Jackson Ross did flip the field, had a couple of great punts, but Dave, those line drive punts are setting up some good returns from other teams, and he's got to put more hang time on the ball when he punts it.
Yeah, I feel like it's a matter of time until Tennessee gives one up for some reason. I've thought that for a couple of weeks.
Hey now.
All right, what's next?
Alrighty, and the two more, the return game, B+. Javon McCoy had two really good returns, but honestly, he had one that he should have returned, and he called a fair catch, which was a mistake. And he also had a return that he slowed what he could have done because he bobbled the return. So that's the only reason it's not an A.
The bobble scared me. That in and of itself, I'm dropping a grade.
That's crazy.
I mean, you just catch the ball. Just catch the ball.
I agree. And then
you know what they needed to do? The old Johnny Majors trick. So they would have the punter punt the ball from the top of Neyland Stadium. Do you know that?
Really?
So it'd make it more difficult to return it because the wind's going to affect it and that sort of thing. That's what I was told. I don't know that, but that's what I was always told. All right, who's next?
And we close with coaching, and I think coaching's a C. I don't think coaching was horrible in this game because, one, Tim Banks is coaching, and I think Tim Banks was fine for most of the game outside of that one call. And offense, look, guys, you can blame the coaching for the other 364 days out of the year, but on Saturday, I think Joey Halzle and Josh Heupel their hands are tied right now with what they can do.
I agree, but that's their fault because they recruited
it's their
the same
fault.
guys.
They did. I mean, you can blame them for recruiting and everything else off the field. But when I do coaching on the field, I just judge their play calling on the field. And I didn't think it was terrible.
4 things you need to know about the rest of college football playoff and how it pertains to Tennessee's chances of making the college or rest of college football and how it pertains to Tennessee's chances of making the college football playoff. Number one, those guys are beatable. Alabama. And you would think they would have bounced back after the loss to Vanderbilt in a big way. They didn't. They looked very average. They struggled to beat the Gamecocks. Jalen Milroe was one of the problems in that game. Caleb pointed out he didn't think he'd be a great fit for that offense, Kalen DeBoer's offense, and I think that's turning out to be the case. I think Jalen DeBoer would be a baseline B in pretty much any offense, but I don't think he's going to be an A+ in that offense. He threw 2 picks. Also, he threw a ball away that was called for intentional grounding in the end zone. So that's a safety. Now, I spoke today with gambling analyst Tyler Wyatt. He expected the Vols will be a 2-point underdog at home, which leads me to part 2. Those guys are beatable. Part 2. Georgia tends to play down to lesser opponents. And they did win by double digits, 41-31 over Mississippi State, in which Kirby Smart, we'll talk more about this, pushed a Mississippi State player, which is pretty intriguing.
Hey, Dave, who told you that was the best underdog to pick to cover the week, Mississippi State?
It might have been you. So I found it interesting that Tyler said he thinks that the Gators would be 8.5-point favorites based off his analytics right now. Did I say the Gators? I'm sorry, the Bulldogs. 8.5-point favorites to Tennessee in Athens on October the 16th. All right, now the bad news. The Vols beat Oklahoma 25-15 in September, but they looked pretty awful against Texas 34-3. So that's what you would think is a quality win. Doesn't look so quality. Now, the rest of the games, Tennessee should be able to cruise to based off the analytics from Tyler, who's going to join us from time to time on the program. Tennessee projected by Tyler White to be a 10.5-point favorite against Kentucky, a 40.5-point favorite against UTEP, and a 15-point favorite against Vanderbilt. And again, the number that matters the most, Tennessee better than a 50-50 shot at 52% based off projections by ESPN of making the college football playoff. And that's what it's all about.
It is. And hey, maybe by the college football playoff, the tackles figure it out, and Nico Emeliava can throw the ball. So I'm reading, guys. We're reading that did LSU just beat Ole Miss in overtime? Is that what I'm seeing? Because people are calling me out by saying that I'm LSU homer, Dave. Yes, and they did. LSU just beat Ole Miss, just beat Lane Kiffin in overtime.
Okay, that's a big deal because that's a team that a lot of people thought at the beginning of the year you'd be competing with for a college football playoff spot. Now maybe it's LSU, which is 5-1 and 2-0. But if you had asked me before the year, I would have said Ole Miss is more in prime position to win that. I do not think LSU is an elite team. So it makes me wonder if Ole Miss unravels because they do have some mercenaries on their team. And Caleb, how many teams do you think the SEC gets into the college football playoff right now?
Well, I've upped from 4 to 5 because there were a few. No, I'm still down at 4 because I think that there's more competition from the Big Ten than I expected this year.
Yeah, and by the way, kudos to Penn State going on the road, traveling 3 time zones, and beating Southern California. And it's just a reminder that Lincoln Riley is not half the coach that Josh Heupel is. That offense is good, okay, not as good as it has been in the past, but defensively, I mean, to give up 33 points to Penn State, who had to go 3 time zones over. I think they left like last Wednesday to get to the game. I mean, they really did leave on Thursday. So I don't know what the Big Ten's doing there. I think it's absurd, but the only teams that are getting beat in the new Big Ten spread across the country are those that are in Los Angeles, as Indiana is the only other team, to my knowledge, coming into today that traveled 2 time zones and got the win. So
yeah, because Oregon just beat Ohio State 32-31 also. So and that's when you called and you said it was the time zone thing. And it's a real
thing, dude. I mean, listen, I mean, I know that they all have these planes and chartered planes and stuff, but unless they've started having the type of planes they have, let's say in the NBA, that have big extended seats because you just have to travel 25 people, then with a football team that's really hard. So I mean, like take Cooper Mays for instance, he's 6 foot 300 and whatever pounds. Or take Lance Hurd for goodness sake. I mean, when he's not holding on to his seat, he's sitting in it uncomfortably. So I think that's a big thing. I really do. And I've been around teams that had to travel extensively, and it's a thing. It is a thing. But congratulations to the Vols. That's a big win. It looks like Tennessee can beat Alabama despite their play. I'm not saying will, but it looks like they can. And then you go into a bye week with the college football playoff hopes very much alive, and maybe to time to address your tackle situation. But
and as Elias, if they can get into the bye with the playoff alive, start preparing for that trip to Bloomington, Indiana, as the Hoosiers host a playoff game.
Not gonna happen.
And Dave pulls his hair out.
Yes, just shut her down if that's the case. Just shut the whole college football playoff down. If there's any point that they're what do they call it, mathematically still eligible late into November, then we just got to relook at the whole thing. We got to take a whole new glance. Caleb, around about the time you started working full time for me, I'm not even sure I told you this. We got a dog, and it was a big spastic idiot, and I think something was wrong with it. It was huge and growled at people, so we got a new dog. At some point, college football playoff, if Indiana makes the playoff, needs to get a new dog. All right, for Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This is the Last Look, a presentation by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Have a fantastic, Sunday, everyone. For Caleb, I'm Dave. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.